Everyone, I'd like to call the November 19th, 2020 Inspector General Review Committee meeting to order. Madam Clerk, could we have the roll call?
State Attorney Ehrenberg, Chair Cruz,
Here.
Commissioner DeGraffenreich, Public Defender Howitt, Vice Chair Kreidel,
Present.
Commissioner Kugler,
Here.
Commissioner Romano.
Here. Okay, thank you very much. We do have a quorum, and hopefully the other commissioners will be joining us shortly. And I'd like to welcome Commissioner Michael Kugler to the IG committee meeting. And 6 months ago, you weren't a commissioner, now you are. So we'll see you in 6 months after this. Okay.
Thank you.
All righty. Could I have a motion to approve the Inspector General Committee meeting minutes from May 21st, 2020?
So moved.
Motion by Commissioner Romano, second by Vice Chair Kugler. Kreidel, I'm sorry. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. All right. Mr. General, glad to be back here. We
Well,
look
good
forward to
morning.
your presentation.
Thank you. And ready to go over our highlights of the past 6 months. Okay, here are the things that we're going to be covering today. Our highlights, again, that's the whole purpose we're here, of what we've done over the last 6 months between April and September. And then we finished our annual report, and we just published that, sent that out to you all. We got that done this week, so we'll just hit a couple of the highlights overall of things we've done in fiscal year 2020. Talk about our budget, staffing, plans, where we're going in the future, and then a summary of our accomplishments. We always like to wrap up of what we've done to date over the years that we've been in existence.
Excuse me, Mr. General, Ms. Howitt has just joined us. Thank you.
A rain shower.
Ah.
Came from crossing the street.
Good morning.
Welcome. Morning.
Well, we always like to start out with our mission, just for the public who's watching. Again, our mission is basically, I'd like to put this in people speak, is to promote integrity, efficiency, and effectiveness in government. And when we're talking about integrity, we're talking about promoting, preventing, detecting, investigating fraud, waste, abuse, mismanagement, misconduct in government, and the proactive side of what we do to make government work at its best. If you would note there, I've got the bulldog on there. That is the Marine Corps mascot. And they often call Inspector Generals the watchdogs, the citizens' watchdogs of the public trust. And so I thought it appropriate that November 10th was the Marine Corps' birthday, 245 years old, and we're still, like we say, we're 245 years old, but we don't carry a crutch yet. We're still pretty strong. Just a little introductions to a new team. Since our last time we've met, Chanel is not here with us, but we had one new member join the staff, Auditor Chanel Brathwaite. Great addition to the staff. She brings with her audit experience from the Florida Department of State Revenue. She was a tax audit supervisor. So she's came and went right to work and is doing great things for us. Of course, another highlight, every 6 months we have to talk about Calinthia. It's like this, she continues to top herself with awards and recognitions that she's received. During this period in September, Calinthia was awarded the prestigious Athena Award, the Athena Leadership Award by our Chamber of Commerce of the Palm Beaches. And this is a very prestigious award. It's not just a county award, but this is a national program that recognizes the leadership model that meets the needs of emerging leaders and speaks convincingly to women leaders who will head organizations of the future. And again, in Calinthia, congratulations again. Well deserved. And I'm so blessed, the office is blessed just to have Calinthia to work with us as the Deputy IG and our General Counsel. So congratulations. And I should add too, just for everybody, if anybody has questions or comments at any point, please stop me along the way and we'll address those questions or comments. So now we're going to go into our activities. And first of all, I'm going to talk about COVID activities, and then the regular activities that we usually hit: intake, investigations, contract oversight, auditing, and then our outreach. Our COVID-related activities. Well, we started out this year, this fiscal year was going to be our big year. We had planned and started making plans to have the big celebration for the 10-year anniversary of our office, the creation of our office, and all the things we did. We thought we were going to have great open houses and a lot of events to celebrate and to promote the office and the things that we did. But then, just like the rest of the world, COVID hit. And so all of our efforts and attention, we thought it would be most appropriate. It's not time to celebrate, it's time to get to work. So we focused all of our effort, that extra effort we had, on COVID dollars oversight. So we adjusted well, like everybody else. We adjusted to the new norm. I'm really proud of the staff, how quickly that we adapted and just moved on to working remotely. And we were set up very good because most of our work, we had laptop computers that we do on-site work through our audits, investigations, and reviews. So we were set up technologically pretty well to move on. And the staff adjusted quickly, and we moved off-site and had a great staff, continue to be very productive in that. I want to particularly give a shout out to Jeff Whaley, our IT specialist, who, again, not only those who did not have the computers right off the bat, that we got folks ready to work off-site. He's maintained all of our IT connections. Any problems that come up, he's just done an excellent job in keeping us so we all can work. I also want to give a shout out to Barbara Bellafiore, our executive assistant here. Everybody else has been out and about, and they come in as needed. So mainly been working at home, and as needed, they'll come in. Barbara has been at the front desk every day since we started on the COVID. She is the hub. She's the person in the office. She's been often, again, the face of the office to many people who come in. She's been the ears to the public and to the people in government, and also our voice. And she's just done a great job with me. Her and I have been the ones holding down the fort at the office every day. So done a great job. Thank you, Barbara. So the county, as you know, received $261 million in federal Coronavirus Aid Relief Act funds to help our businesses, to help our citizens in this time of need. The expenditures of this money went to areas like general government expenses, emergency food distribution, individual assistance, family housing assistance, and local businesses grants, and non-congregate sheltering, broadband enhancements, and child care assistance. So this is where this money's been going. I want to also recognize the county. When they received this money, you know, the first thing that happens in the IG world, our antenna goes up and realizes we have more oversight to do. There's more work for us to do on our oversight. Well, the county also recognized this, and the county immediately came to our office and said, we want to make sure, as we have to expend these funds and we need to get this money out to people in need, we want to do it in a responsible way and that there's accountability in this. So they came to our office and asked us to provide oversight and work with them to provide independent oversight of where our dollars are going. So here are 4 of our current projects underway that our contract and oversight division is doing. So these are current projects that are underway. The first project is Palm Beach County, and these are all Palm Beach County programs, is the Restart Business Grant Program. And I'll stop and say greetings to our state attorney.
Yes, welcome to Mr. Ehrenberg.
Good morning.
Good morning.
On police chief's call, so thank you for having me. Sorry for
Good.
being a few minutes late.
Great, it's good to see you. This program we're providing oversight to, this is administered by the county's Department of Housing and Economic Sustainability. And what we're doing here in the oversight, we're looking at generally how the county has organized this program and how they're dispensing the funds. So we're looking at how they're dispensing these grants to small businesses, looking at their business practices. We're reviewing them that as far as their processes for accuracy and compliance according to their policy about how they're dispersing this. Our report will be out in December on this, so we're wrapping it up right now. But overall, I can say that we found that the county developed an overall reasonable process to administer these funds and disperse these funds, and that in the sampling of the applications that we've reviewed, that by and large, they've been approved or denied in accordance with the county policies and procedures. Now, the next program that we're looking at two non-congregate facilities, one at Pahokee and one in Belle Glade. And for those of you who, anybody out there, let's assume in looking at us on the Channel 20, who may not know what that means, I had to look it up specifically to make sure I knew what does that mean. A non-congregate facility are for those who test positive for COVID-19 who do not require hospitalization but need isolation. So that's for people who test positive but they can't isolate in their family. They don't want to isolate in the area and they have no place to go. So it is a facility where we can isolate people with COVID away from their family, where they don't have a place that they can do it on their own. The first project, Pahokee, and so both of these projects were rehabilitating county properties that they own. And these are big dollars. The first is around $6 million, the Pahokee site out there. And they're not only using our CARES Act money, but they're also using some of our one-penny sales tax money to do that. So that's a double reason that we need to be providing oversight of those. And so what we're doing, we're reviewing the competitive solicitation of the rehabilitation of these county facilities, and reviewing the solicitation process to ensure that it's complete and in accordance with the solicitation procedures and documents and law. So we're reviewing these as they're being let, the contracts, and as the projects are underway. And then we're in the process of reviewing the services for the homeless. And in this program, the county is providing funds. It's a process we're reviewing the overall program of how they're providing funds to persons who are living with mental illness and substance disorder and who are basically homeless to try to take care of them. Successful applicants will provide up to 20 rapid rehousing beds for county residents who are not ready for recovery. So we're providing oversight to that. Couple projects that they completed during this time is one was a complaint that came in on the food bank, Palm Beach County Food Bank. The complaint came in that from some other organizations that stated, hey, we would like to have some of this money. The county's providing money to the food bank to help feed people in need during this time, and we'd like to have some of that money. Well, we reviewed the whole process and found that the processes that the counties was using was within the policies and regulations, and so we found nothing that was improper according to the way the county was dispersing their money. We also looked at the rental and utility assistance program of the county, and that was the process for applicant agencies to assist county residents in applying for rental and utility assistance. And we found that the county completed the award process according to its policies and procedures. Now on to the investigative side that we're looking at things. Since COVID started, early in the year, we've had 26 complaints or correspondences, and that's calls, requests, questions, requests for assistance. It may not be necessarily complaint, but calls that came in about COVID, whether it's complaint, request for assistance. And this is up to September 30th. We had 2 open investigations. One of those investigations just closed, and that report went out a few days ago. And that report was an allegation. The allegation was the Restart Business Grant application. One of the persons submitted, the allegation was that somebody submitted an application on behalf of Lutina's Pizza and Sub. They did not accurately identify the business owners and their percentage of ownership in violation of the county program requirements. And we did find that substantiated. And we made recommendations to the county to help improve the program, and they've accepted that and is going to implement, basically try to have somebody sign on that application who's signing. And we found out during that application process, originally it looked like it could have been, while we're looking at these things, potential fraud, and we found out that it was basically miscommunication. The ownership had gone back and forth during this time between different owners. And so we did not find apparent fraud that took place, but the application was improperly filled out by the owners. And so the county's taken appropriate action. We made several referrals to other organizations. So one service that the IG provides is we are the office that people can call. When we don't know who to call and we have something's not right, we call the IG. And if we don't handle it, we make sure that it gets in the proper hands. Some of those referrals, for example, we had an allegation that one of the golf courses was still open during the time that the county was supposed to be closed. We had an allegation that one of the healthcare centers was not accepting COVID patients, that they were accepting COVID patients and not properly isolating them. And we refer these to the proper agency. This went to the county health department. Some of these, a condo association not in compliance with the governor's directives. Complaint, one complaint came in that they weren't getting the money, their unemployment assistance they needed during the COVID. And again, we refer, when people come in, we help them get linked up to the right agency, and then also ourselves notify the right agency. Now finally, we are in the process of conducting reviews of these businesses that accept the CARES Act grants. And what these are, we're doing like they're quick looks, basically. We're sending out, we've already done 13 sites, 13 businesses. We randomly select businesses of all types all across the county, and then we'll go out and make a contact with the owners, the business representatives, to make sure that that money that they've submitted requests for the grants, they've received the grant money, that money is being spent in accordance with the grant. It's on the business. So we don't hear any of the programs that you've heard at the federal level of some of the PPE, the businesses accepted that and they've went out and bought a Ferrari and different things and not for their business. We're making sure and working with the county, we're going out and checking, again, just randomly checking to make sure that this isn't happening here in Palm Beach County with the CARES Act dollars. Intake and investigation highlights, and you've all met before, I believe, Stu Robinson. Stu, right here, is our director of investigations and intake and has done just a great job here for us. This is a summary of where we've been on intake activities, and Angie Rentz is here with us, our head of intake manager. We also have Tecia Morris, who works with her. And again, all of those complaints come into Angie and to figure out what we're going to do with them. Now, originally, we thought that complaints might go down, and at the start when COVID hit, they did go down a little bit, but then they peaked back up. And you can see we've had a number more complaints, in fact, than we received the prior 6 months. And then there's a breakdown of all the complaints that came in, where some of these complaints led to, investigations, referrals, management inquiries, and management referrals. And for our Commissioner Kugler, for terminology, a management inquiry, what that means is we get a complaint in, and we send, then it's like right off the bat, we do analysis of every complaint that comes in a basically preliminary inquiry. And sometimes we investigate them, but there are sometimes that there's just enough there that I don't think it would be best for us to investigate. So we assign it to the city or the entity, and we say, we're asking you to look at this, and you report back to us and we give them a list of questions. And if they report back to us and it seems reasonable that, okay, that either one, something was not working properly, but they took appropriate action, good, or that something that's not as it seemed in the complaint, and here's why, and they provide appropriate evidence, good, we'll close that out. And sometimes they provide that back to us and say, okay, there's something there, but we need to investigate that, and we'll open investigation. So that's one kind of an in-between where we'll ask them for information before we decide on whether we're going to investigate or not. So that's a management inquiry.
Okay.
As opposed to a management inquiry, then there's a management referral. And a referral is a complaint that I would say sometimes these are complaints. I like to use the example of we get a complaint that we went into the front office and the receptionist was rude to us. And the receptionist, they said something that was they treated us improperly. Somebody was not treating us professionally. Certainly should be looked at. But our office is not going to usually launch an investigation on that. So we'll refer that to the agency for them to take care of, and they aren't required to respond back to us what they did. We'll assume that they took appropriate action. So that's the difference when you see management inquiry and management referrals.
Excuse me, Mr. Chair, can I ask a question? Does the 111 complaints include the 26 COVID-related complaints?
Yes.
Okay.
It does.
Thank you.
Now on to investigative activities, once it gets through the intake side on the investigative activities. And each time we've added on every slide for every division now, just to let you know currently what's in process, to show you the volume of activity we've got going. We currently have 12 open investigations or investigative activities, formal investigations underway. During this time, they've made 3 as a result of the investigative work that they've done, 3 referrals to either law enforcement agency, county, or state commission on ethics. And that's opposed to what you first saw in intake. Sometimes we get things that automatically should go, this isn't our jurisdiction, but automatically that would be referred to a commission on ethics or law enforcement someplace. These are specifically as a result of our investigations underway. We see, as we're investigating, we see, oh, wait a minute, this is something that should be referred to law enforcement. We need to contact them or commission on ethics. Issued 3 reports, we'll talk about them, and made 12 recommendations and issued a couple of tips and trends. Our first investigation was on a complaint against the city manager of Pahokee for inappropriate purchasing card expenditures. The complaint came in. The findings of that was supported. We did find that City Manager Williamson used his city credit card for expenses that were not related or approved for official business. Expenses lacked required travel request forms and supporting documents, and the travel was without utilizing the most economic means of transportation. And we also found that the expenses lacked receipts. And here's what the results, what happened as a result. We found that the total was just over $5,800 of identified costs, And again, in that term, identified cost means dollars that the city or the town may recoup. So when you see identified costs, that means they may recoup. As opposed to question cost, almost $16,000 of question cost, that means expenses that may not be waste, but the problem is, like a lot of times, it's not a proper paperwork. There's not enough supporting documents, so we can't say that that's fraud or waste necessarily, but what we can say is just it's not properly accounted for. We're not accounting for the taxpayer dollars the way the regulations, and there's a standard that says you're supposed to turn in this case, your receipts when you travel. You're supposed to ask a lot of times prior to the travel or prior to the expense, you're supposed to fill out a form and give notice. And these dollars, again, a great amount of this dollars were just not properly accounted for the way we should be. There could be, but again, it's too difficult to tell in a lot of it. Now the city manager did pay back to the city that $5,800 and some dollars as a result of our report. We referred this on to the state attorney's office, the county commission on ethics, and also the state commission on ethics, and made recommendations to help tighten up the town's procedures and oversight and accountability for taxpayer dollars.
Mr. General, did the city of Pahokee accept all your recommendations?
The city is waiting for any further action by the state attorney or the commission on ethics as far as any actions on the city manager. So
I guess
we
I'm also...
recommended to take, so most of the recommendations to tighten up procedures, they did.
Okay, that's what I mean.
And he did, that one of the recommendations was to recoup that money, which he voluntarily provided back, to take appropriate action on the city manager.
So it doesn't happen again, right?
So, yeah, they're waiting for further actions of the other agencies before they determine what they might do. Our next investigation, this was an interesting one. A complaint came in from the city of Town Beach that they believed that a vendor, Johnson Controls, who was doing business with them, the contract was to install security cameras on the roads and around, was not meeting its requirements, and that they had basically billed them for work that they didn't do, not completed according to the agreement. Well, when it came down, we looked into that very thoroughly, and that came down to there was just not evidence that was clear that was showing any fraud, and what it looked like more was that the two parties, the understanding of the county or of the city who was providing oversight of the contract, it was a miscommunications or no communications between the town, the person that they set up to, the town representative to monitor the project was just did not carry the qualifications to provide proper oversight of it. And between that and the vendor, we found it was more a miscommunication and interpretation of the terms, and of the terms of the agreement related to the performance and billings. So we made a couple recommendations to help the town in the future establish better internal controls at the start and enhancing their compliance over the contractual dealing with vendors. This next one was on investigations on the city of Delray, the out-of-school program purchasing policy violations. And the allegation was that the out-of-school program supervisor requested payments that the city pay vendors by check, and then afterwards that she had paid, this is after she had paid them using the purchasing card, then split the check proceeds with the vendor. Sounds like pretty severe allegation, and it was. And we looked into that and found that that was not supported. That was not substantiated. Also, the fact that they hired an employee's son in violation of the city purchasing ethics policy, that was not supported. that she created, submitted false invoices, not supported. But this one allegation, the fine allegation, was supported, that requested payments for vendors that were not active within the city's financial accounting vendor file at the time the purchases were made. So it was a procedural allegation that we did substantiate. And we made recommendations, again, to help strengthen the city's oversight of purchasing policies. Now, this was an interesting project, and this was not an investigation. This was a joint project that we did with the FBI. One of our former FBI agents that worked for us, Eric Hathaway, worked this, doing it. He's a great job, another great add to the office. What had happened, the FBI had notified us that they had found some actors targeting South Florida financial institutions, and that they, for theft, using the domain spoofing of local government employees. And to make that even more clear, what was happening, they were using, one of the people, for example, was in the county, was a person who had ability to purchase, open, you could find the person openly. Well, they changed the person's email address slightly, they used the county seal, and so they sent a notice, an email to some company that they wanted to send them thousands of, the county, what the spoof was, send us thousands of dollars worth of computer equipment and send it to this location and we'll pay you. The location was a off-site storage place, and we assumed the deal was if it did show up there, somebody else would come and pick it up and take it someplace else. Well, again, we found this beforehand, worked with the FBI, and so we worked with them to develop a notice to the financial institutions and also to the county and different government agencies that this is going on, to beware that this is happening out there. There's the biggest thing that the county would have been unaware of that, because again, they did not use a county address to do this, but it would have been after the fact that somebody was selling. So we work with the FBI to put out a notice on this.
So General, how do we avoid, what protections do we have so that we know, so that the institutions know when things do?
Yeah, that's very difficult. The way the institutions know that the individuals were notified by the FBI that this was happening. So a lot of times it's very difficult to know if your email is because if somebody adds a different letter or a name or uses your name, the county's actually not the victim. So the county's not the victim. The business, that computer business, if they would have sent it, would be the victim. So the best way to do it is for the financial institutions, in this case, are the first line when they see these suspected spoofing attempts, to stop it right there. Certainly, if the county puts out good training, and usually the cities that we've been to often put out good notices to watch out specifically, but a lot of times the individual government employee would never know, the county would never know, because again, the county's not a victim other than its seal being used and that person's name being used, but it's really the business that they're trying to steal from is that victim. Is there anything else I should say about that, Stu?
The only thing I would add is this FBI liaison information report has a specific purpose of being available for public dissemination. So this gave a fully vetted, FBI-approved product to all banking industry officials in South Florida and all Broward, Dade, and Palm Beach counties.
I'll repeat what you said there. Basically, for those that watching online, basically it gives a notice out. What happens, the FBI puts the notice out to all banking institutions, all other institutions, and I might say too, it can be the spoofer or the thief who's attempting to do it, when they get word, they go someplace else. That we're on to them. So they unfortunately, they don't quit. These folks never do until they're caught, but they go someplace else other than Palm Beach County trying to do this often. When they
Able to identify them?
No, we were not. Is there anything else?
With West Palm PD, we confronted the person that did the couriering for them, and once we did that,
Yeah.
we stopped them.
Yeah, this is more of the rest of the story. Part of our work with law enforcement, we got with West Palm Beach Police Department on this case. And we let this go through. We sent a note back to that person, and we thought, okay, who's gonna, the equipment's in, it's at the site. Well, the other person came in to pick it up, and they were just a hauling company with they weren't able to make the connections between them. They were being used also unwittingly, what it seems like. But clearly, once that happens, the word eventually is going to get back to the thief that, wait a minute, somebody's on to them, and the police were there. We were there with the police to question the individuals that came to pick up the equipment. And so that's one way word gets back, to at least go someplace else.
And John, in the instance that we arrived with West Palm PD, they were expecting to receive about $300,000.
Yeah, yeah. This was, about $300,000 worth of equipment. So anyway, interesting thing. These are just an example of some of the other interesting type of work we do. That, again, that doesn't always, that was an FBI information report that didn't result in one of our reports going out or a major investigation. It was an assist. Investigations put out. We use this time, you'll see later in the presentation, our outward presentation to the public went down to 0 during this 6 month. With COVID, folks, we didn't go out and do public speaking. We didn't speak at Rotary clubs and, the chambers of commerce. So we took some of that time for education, and we did a number of tips and trends to put out to our government organizations to help educate, prevent things on our education side. One of these, again, was a reminder on how to use government retail cards and policies. That was a result of the investigation in Pahokee. We put that out to all cities in the county, a reminder about the requirements on proof of purchasing goods. We sent out a best practices and warnings reporting from Federal Office of Inspector General about working remotely. We wanted to put out some guidance about remote working, things to watch out for, things that, red flags and scams and things as you're working at home. Before we did that, we started looking at our federal partners, and a number of federal agencies had put some very good guidance out. And so we captured the best of their guidance and put out that in a tips and trends and distributed that. Now, here's one thing I want to really, again, commend Stu for. He's taken the bull by the horns and dramatically increased our social media enhancements. And so we've really been going much more now on Twitter and Facebook, putting our information out on a number of them on a weekly basis for those who follow us. And just since he started during this period, the entire year before was 3,800 on Twitter views. Within the first 60 days that he started this, we had over 11,000 Twitter page views. And so similar enhancements on our Facebook. So Stu's done a great job on enhancing that program and working with Jeff, our IT guru, on getting things out there, more visibility. So we plan on continuing this. We just recently this is after the reporting period, but it's significant, so I want to talk about it. Every 3 years, we are assessed by the Florida Commission on Law Enforcement Accreditation. And they review not only law enforcement agencies, but also Office of Inspector Generals within the state. And it's a voluntary program. Not all law enforcement agencies or not all Office of Inspector Generals are accredited by this state agency. And they have very high standards and they come in and they look at our investigations, they look at, are we doing these things? And I like to, the answer to this, the question often is, who guards the guards? Who inspects the inspector? Well, we're inspected. This is one of the ways we're inspected. This organization comes in with assessors, and they look at us every 3 years to make sure that our investigations are evidence-based, done properly, done according to our policies and these state standard accreditation policies of professionalism, so we can assure the public that when they get an IG investigation, that it meets these standards and it's looked at every 3 years. We passed, which is good. We've passed every 3 years that we have this every 3 years. Our accreditation manager, Cynthia Sorrell, got us ready for that. Cynthia's not here today, but taking over for her now is Anthony Bennett, is taking over now, and worked with her in this transition. Did a great job. I might note too, Cynthia, for out there, congratulations. She just passed. She is now a certified fraud examiner. Just passed the test and became a certified fraud examiner.
Excellent.
Contract oversight and evaluations highlights. Now, I want to say it's noted in our annual report, Karen Mayer, who had been the director for that division, done a great job for years. She decided to retire, and she is back now in Ohio. She left and went September 30th. So after great service to us, she said it's time to go home and enjoy her time in Ohio. So she's back there now. Since then, Tony Montero, back here, you've seen Tony here before. One of our specialists in contract oversight is now the interim director. The division's in great hands. Tony is not only an Air Force officer, pilot, he went to the Air Force Academy. He has years of experience in procurement before he came here and then in the IG. So Tony is obviously extremely qualified and doing a great job. So here's the summary of the activities from that division. Currently 2 formal reviews that are in process, 3 reports, no recommendations this time, and you'll see why when I brief these reports, and they put out 3 tips and trends. Here's some of the money, that's the breakdown of kind of where they put their efforts in monitoring all of our contract and procurement activities across the county. The county, the municipalities, some are the county and municipalities, sometimes that's joint money that we're providing oversight to of the procurement activities, the contracting, and then the special districts, that's Solid Waste Authority and Children's Services Council. Now the first report, this was done by Tony. We did a review of our Palm Beach County Airport, the parking facilities management. We reviewed their administration of their contract out there with the company that parks for us out there. We found no findings. The county is compliant with its requirements, and Palm Beach County is utilizing appropriate contract administration techniques. So a good news story. We don't proactively, we look at things, organizations and processes and programs across the county. Again, that's not our goal to be a got you. Our job is to provide oversight and then present the facts, present our findings. And so these are good news stories that we find that the county's operating properly. We often make suggestions, even though if we don't have a finding, we'll still might make suggestions on improving processes. The next one was done, this was another a program here on, this was a software, the South Central Planning and Development Commission. They're planning support to the town of Juno Beach in a contract administration that they had reviewed. Again, we found no findings there, and we found that Juno Beach, they were compliant with the contractual contracting requirements. And Tiffany Thomas, who's not here today, conducted that review. Now, likewise, we did a review of the county's youth service department, their mentoring service agreement with the county contract review. Now, this is unique. This time we had 3 reviews which is, again, good news, from contract oversight, 3 reviews where we found had no findings, no major discrepancies to report on these programs, and that they were compliant and utilizing proper techniques. This report was finished up by Karen Mayer because, maybe some of you have seen it, during this 6-month period, might have seen that in the news, Teresa Michael, who is one of our contract specialists, she was selected, and she is now the Inspector General for the Palm Beach County Schools. So from our office there, Teresa now is the IG over at the school board. We put out 3 tips and trends, one on some changes of update on notary law, updating on statutes also for construction that we put out, tips on new changes, and then finally how to avoid pitfalls on retention of records. So they put out 3 tips and trends. Now again, as I told you before, the contract oversight, they're often the unsung heroes, because again, they do a lot of their work is again below the surface of what they do. They're out, that a lot of the things do not result in reports. They're constantly out monitoring. So they're in the monitoring business of our contract and procurement, and they review selection committee information, procurement activities going on of millions of dollars across the county. And as they're they're very present. It's like the policeman who's going down I-95 that you see, all of a sudden I kind of let off the gas a little bit when I see them. So just their mere presence is a preventative nature, and making sure that people are doing the best things. But when they find things that they can make, they give a lot of advice along the way. When something's going off the track, this is our preventative nature, to where we're able to give advice and help before things go bad. So we'd much rather things go right and government be working good than us having to investigate on the tail end. So there are proactive, preventative monitoring arm of the office, an education arm of the office, often, many times one-on-one with the cities on procurement, identifying discrepancies, and I give a big list, but these are the types of things they do below the surface. Audit. And I might add, audit, Hillary Beaujean back here has taken over as audit director this year, and she has just done an excellent job. She's not only filling the director of audit job, but we did not fill the audit manager role. So she's really filling two jobs herself, the director of audit, the audit manager. She does a lot of our analytics. She's multi-hatted and leading the division and doing a great job. And we've, some of our senior auditors have helped her and taken up some of the slack. Kathy Davis has helped her on taking up some of the slack of reviewing papers. So she's done just an excellent job since she's been here. Again, you can see high volume. We've got 13 audits still ongoing. So we've got a number of audits going. We've issued 2 reports during this reporting period, made a number of recommendations, found some question costs and potential savings. We'll talk about these, and they issued a tips and trends during this period. This first audit was City of Riviera Beach employment separation process. The City of Riviera Beach requested us to do this audit. So they wanted to look at, you might have seen this in the news, it started over a year ago, where in the news they found that some of their employees who had left over the time, that they had still been paying insurance on them. And this was a lot of money. As we found, this was up to the tune of, this was high dollar, millions of dollars over the years, several years. What had happened is people had left in their separations organization, the people in charge to check them out and to stop the insurance. They'd had turnover over this time. They didn't have good policies and procedures in place that the next person who would pick up to see how to do it. And as a result, again, they had a large number of folks as they check out who had checked out. Again, they weren't receiving pay, but they were paying, the city was paying for their health and dental insurance, which, again, added up to big dollars over the years. Now, we made recommendations to help them correct this program. Many of the things they started correcting along the way, we made recommendations to help them tighten up so this wouldn't happen in the future. But the one good news story that's not actually, doesn't stand out, there was suspicion at the start from some of the citizens, and in fact, some of the council members thought, this is so rampant and bad, is there fraud, was this fraudulent? Was somebody getting money somewhere for letting this insurance continue? And we did not find signs of that happening. We found it because it happened across various departments over a number of years, and there were a number of people involved who should have been checking them out, and this was just poor management. They dropped the ball. And so that's a good sign, if you're looking for a good sign out of this, is it was not intentional fraud and there was not somebody who received money. They weren't able to get money back from the insurance company. The insurance company originally gave them back some, but it would be just like us. If we had left an insurance, we forgot to cancel our insurance for years and kept paying it, the insurance company said, hey, that's too bad. I'm sorry you did that. But the insurance company did not provide back all the money. They did a small portion of that money. Did you have a question, sir?
Was HIPAA any kind of an impediment with respect to determining if these former employees filed claims?
Yes, that wasn't part of the scope, asking about, did any of that was the next question, did any of these employees file claims and receive the money? That was not part of the request and part of the scope of the audit that we did to look specifically. We did discuss that with the city. It did not believe, they did not look at was wide scale, that most of these employees, they had no knowledge. They were not unaware. When they left, just like when we leave employment, you assume you no longer have insurance by that place. So the vast majority of the folks did not file. And then we talked about that, even if they did file, from the insurance company's perspective, they're still covered. You're still being covered. It would not, the city would not be able to recoup that, because really the city, again, it's the insurance company who paid, and so it would be difficult to get that money back. So we discussed that with the city, and that wasn't, so that was not part of the scope of the audit. Now this next review, again, on the county project here, this was on the Palm Beach County financial management budget of the public service tax, and this was tax of propane tax around the county. A lot of these companies who drop off propane tax at gas stations and all these, you see where you can pick up your propane gas. There's a county surtax on each one of these that the organization is supposed to be collecting and providing to the county or to the cities where they're in. And this is one the county asked us to look into. So it's another example of working together with the government agencies. This is not all self-initiated. A number of these works are at the request of the agencies. So we looked into that, and again, we found out that there was a number of question costs, but in this case, we found out that there was almost $124,000 of taxes that weren't collected that now can be collected from these agencies, from the gas organization. So now the cities, and it's spread out across the county, multiple cities. We had it all broken down for them, so then they can go back to those vendors who are delivering the gas to attempt to collect the tax money. We found most of the time it was just a lot of ignorance, a lot of they weren't knowledgeable about what they were supposed to keep, and nobody had asked them for the money before, and so there was a lot of just unawareness of the programs out there. Yes, sir.
I've been on this committee a long time, and this is not the first occurrence of this issue. Mm-hmm. were any of the vendors who failed to remit the tax among those that were investigated previously?
Let me look at, no, not that we're aware of these vendors. So this before, I believe, the county internal auditor had looked to some degree in this a number of years ago and found out, and we reviewed their report before we did ours. This was very extensive, and we looked now for, drilled down to the dollars and cents of each of the vendors on this. Yes, sir.
So I would assume that these businesses are businesses that have to have either a county or a municipal license in order to conduct this business.
Yes.
And so is this training on making sure that they have knowledge of these taxes and setting up their systems to pay these taxes part of the licensing requirement for these businesses?
I believe that is it's part of the, when they deliver, I'm looking at my expert over here. So Hillary, when they actually do the contract with the business to send sell their gas through the business, are they made aware at that time?
I'm not sure what the requirements are as far as the municipalities and the county of making them aware of the tax. I don't think that they do.
Yeah.
But we recommended to the municipalities and the county that they cross-check their business tax receipt database to these businesses and make sure that they are collecting it.
Yeah, so I think the short answer to that is no, it's not specific. And so one of the recommendations, we made the recommendation to both the city and the county, because it's something they have to monitor and educate those businesses along the way, because they're not, I think we found a lot of these businesses were not aware. Some of them were, a number of them weren't aware they were supposed to be providing this. So that was one of the recommendations we made to the counties and the cities. Hey, when you have these folks coming, you need to put an education, somehow put in writing, educate better these business folks what their requirements are to the city. So that was one of our recommendations. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, it does, but it seems to me like this is an opportunity for when you have the licensing, that education is a requirement in order to obtain the license. And then potentially there's some certifications by those businesses every 6 months or a year that they are in compliance with that. And that might prevent this issue from occurring in the future and give more teeth to the issue if it does occur in the future.
Okay, that's.
To add to that, I think that's a great, you know how when you download a piece of software, you get this long user agreement and you have to push I agree?
Yeah.
I don't know if any of you ever read it. I just scrolled down to I agree. Right. I just scrolled down to I agree. However,
Yes.
maybe when people pull their licenses or renew their licenses, they get a user agreement that says, you understand you're responsible for county and municipal taxes. Check the box and sign your name. In Florida, if you sign something, you own it unless you've signed it under duress.
Yes. So that's good. I will made a note here, and because our recommendations are usually general to the cities and counties, but we'll go back to them and talk to them about this. That's a good recommendation that we do. Thank you.
Thank you.
And in fact, Hillary did this. This was an extensive report started by another auditor who had left our office midway, and Hillary picked this up, completed it while she's the director and the manager running the whole shop, in addition to finishing up this major, significant, very complex report, because it was multiple organizations, multiple businesses, multiple cities involved. This was probably one of our most complex audits that we've done in a good while. Okay, now we're doing another thing they did every year. We conduct a risk assessment. So Hillary conducted a risk assessment of the county. We use this for this year, coming year, we're doing the global approach, looking at areas that we need to look in. So she completed her risk assessment for next year, and the audit plan is the very last attachment or appendix to our annual report in here. We've issued that before independently, but it's also in our annual report of the different types of areas that we're looking at this coming year. Now, these are just ongoing, most of these audits, or a number of these audits right now that you see up there, carryover audits, are ongoing audits. We listed 13 audits that we were conducted. Most of those, that's the audits that we started in fiscal year 2020 that is continuing on into 2021 that we'll be finishing up this year. And then we also have planned areas. Again, some of those planned areas that we have to look at. Again, contracts, agreements. We're going to be looking at areas of the corona, continue auditing, look at coronavirus and construction contracts. We're looking at law enforcement overtime. We're going to be looking at that this year. So that's where audits are going. Training and oversight. As you can see, we really, this is the effect of COVID right here, COVID-19. Usually the citizens, our meetings and presentation to citizens are up there close to what we're doing with the government. And the government's even more than what you usually see. In this last 6 months, zero. We've not been out to speak to any citizens because, again, those are usually, we contact citizens, groups that are going on, and they just haven't asked us to come out. But we've still been in contact with a number of them. The government that in the green, the 227, most of that is through the county. So the county still, I continue every week. I personally brief all county new employees at their new employee orientation. We also do a presentation at the supervisor for the training that the county conducts. And during this time, Boynton Beach requested and had us out there, and we did a Zoom presentation to a number of the Boynton Beach, all of their senior staff, on procurement best practices and also red flags to look for in potential fraud, waste, abuse in procurement or other activities. So they had us out, and I guess my commercial for any municipality out there is we can continue, we can do training, presentations, and we can be out there to help on proactive training on anything from red flags, best practices of procurement, and we like to get out and, again, do these proactive presentations. You see the one yellow there, it's hard to see on the screen, but that's the state and training event presentations that we've done. We had one of our investigators, DJ Lemistroy. I really struggle with Lemistroy. He is a alumni of FAU. So he's alumni there, received his degree, his master's degree in forensic accounting. They had DJ come back, do a presentation for them at their School of Accounting and Executive Programs, which was mainly Zoom presented. And again, they expressed their gratitude for having him come out and present some of the things that he learned at FAU and how he's putting those things into practice now that he's employed and with us. So he went out and represented us. We had an uptick, so you can see in tips and trends this year, we took the time and did more tips and trends than usual, and then media contacts. Now for a summary of our 2020. We're switching from the 6-month into I just want to talk about some highlights that we did that's in our report of fiscal year 2020. And again, each of you, hopefully you've received that. We sent that out just within the past few days. We wanted this year, it was our goal to complete our report before we did our 6-month review, so you could have them both at the same time in case we could, one, kind of highlight that, or if there's any questions. And this summarizes both of the 6 months we gave. So just the highlights of over the year, you can see this is by the numbers of things that we did. the hotline calls that came in, 14 reports issued, made almost 100 recommendations to improve government, made referrals to other law enforcement agencies, and we found some money out there issues. I would say, if I was asked, I would say, if you say, what would you, John, say, what were some of the big things that was done over the years? Well, here's the things I would point out. First of all, we won our lawsuit with a citizen had requested information that on an ongoing investigation that had gone on for a long time, went up to the appeals court, and we won that. Was a big issue because they wanted the complaint that came in associated with an ongoing investigation, and the court ruled in our favor. No, that's also protected as part of that investigation. The complaints are, because this has impact across the entire state for inspector generals. If people were allowed to get the complainant's name during the investigation, then the impact of that would be, well, they would be able to find out what is this investigation, what's the nature. They can start. You could have anybody from starting to talk to other witnesses involved in it, talking to the complainant, bothering the complainant, making sure they're getting their story together, destroying evidence. All types of bad things could happen if people could have access to information of ongoing investigations. And we would have had to, the only other alternative, we would have had to go and get state law, try to get state law changed to protect that also. So fortunately that ruled in our favor, and again, affected IGs across the state, local IGs. Investigative highlights, you just saw, I think probably if I was to say our most significant investigation over the year was the one on the city manager out at Pahokee. I think that's probably our most significant investigation over the year. Our audits, you also saw our two most significant audits, I think, that happened over the year, was in this last 6-month period, was the Riviera Beach employee separation process, had impact as far as dollars and helping them plug the gaps of problems going on there, and they requested that. And the other one was this public surtax of the gas tax. A lot of money that we found there and tried to plug the holes there. Contract administration, I think probably the highlight there, the most significant report was also Pahokee. In the last 6 months, you might remember, we did a review of Pahokee, a Technomarine construction project, where we found the city received, they had up to $150,000 where the city manager inappropriately, in violation of state law, gave the $150,000 to Technomarine. This company was doing it before the work was done. And so that was probably the most significant contract oversight evaluation. So those are highlights of the whole year, in wrapping it up, what I'd say of what we did and kind of some of the things that I would say were the highlights of this year. Outside of making it through and getting, making that adjustment to the global pandemic and still doing business and still providing some good oversight. Budgeting and staffing. So I keep giving the plugs for my Marine Corps. It's just like the Marine Corps, we're a small office, but we're mighty. We're few and the proud in the Inspector General office. Originally, again, when the office was stood up 10 years ago, when we decided here's what it takes, they originally had just over 20 folks to do the county. And then they said, okay, no, the citizens said we want the IG to have oversight of all the 38, now 39 municipalities. So the IG came to the county commission and said, okay, to do that, it would take double the staff. A lot of work, and you've seen most of our work, a larger proportion of our work usually goes to the municipalities. The county commission approved that. Yes, we started to grow. There was a lawsuit by some of the cities about how we're going to fund it. And ever since then, we've kind of been in a semi-stalemate. Now, for the last couple years, the county's increased our staff 2 folks each year. In fiscal year, for this coming fiscal year, when we submitted our budgets, this is the first year that I did not request extra folks. because we were going, I thought, okay, we'll continue to move a couple at a time. But because of the global pandemic, and I thought the effects that it would have on our county government and revenue of people coming in, I did not request 2 additional personnel for this fiscal year 2021. We'll see how things go, see how the economy goes and our budget, so for how we go for the next coming years to get up to our goal to provide adequate oversight of what we need for the county and the municipalities. Where are we going? Continuing working with law enforcement. We've got a few right now investigations that are working with law enforcement right now. Hopefully they'll be coming out. You'll be seeing these in this next year coming out. We finished up our annual report, and we're going to be distributing that and also getting hard copies out, expanding our contract oversight and evaluations. Coronavirus, we're going to continue to put our efforts looking at the CARES Act money, where that's going, and making sure that even though we got to get that out quickly, and we got to get that money, I understand, to people who need that money desperately, we need to do it in a responsible way, and that we can be accountable for it, to try to avoid some of the things, again, that you're seeing on the national scale. That's why we're upfront with the county providing oversight, so we're not finding any of these things after the fact, that really bad things happening. And again, the monitoring. Social media, we're going to continue on that, expanding our social media, continuing our oversight of that, the 1 penny sales tax, that all these projects now are coming on, and we're providing oversight in many ways. And why I put the Association of Inspector General symbol there at the bottom, this coming summer, we're going to be peer reviewed by the Association of Inspector General. So every 3 years, we not only are reviewed in our investigative side by the State Accreditation Association, but in addition to that, we're reviewed by the National Association of Inspectors General, which reviews the entire office. So back to who inspects the inspector, I'm inspected a lot, and they look to make sure that we have their stringent national standards on policies, the way IGs do business, that again, when we put out reports, that's our credibility, that is what we put out. It's got to be accurate. We can be, I've heard the president of the National Association, he said this, and I think it's very true, at a number of our conferences. He said, IGs, you can be late, you can make a number of mistakes. One thing you can't be is wrong. We got to get it right. And that's one thing, and that's why we're so stringent on our standards, that we want to make sure when we put out a report that it's fact-based, and that it's fact-based, it's evidence-based, and again, so the public can know that they can trust their IG as providing independent, objective oversight. Okay, now just the celebration. 10 years, okay, we will have a little celebration of our 10-year existence. Here's what we've done in 10 years. You can see we listen a lot. Thousands of calls come in. We listen to people when they come in. We're the office. Like I said, that whether we handle it or somebody else, we're the office that people can call if they have a problem, a complaint with government, that they can call and we'll help them or get them to the right person. We guard the taxpayer dollars. We found, again, millions of dollars in question cost, potential cost savings that we found in our audits and investigations and reviews. Made over 1,000 recommendations to make government better. And 95% of them are accepted by the organizations to implement. We share best practices, prevent bad things from happening. 19 arrests or prosecutions directly as a result of our work has taken place since we've been around. 183 cases referred to law enforcement or county, state commission on ethics in 10 years. So that's our celebration. I guess what we're going to, we had much bigger plans for a celebration. So thanks for allowing me just a few minutes here to celebrate. We've done good work. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. General. All right, so Commissioners, Ms. Howitt.
Yes, thank you. General, I think we've talked about this in the past, but the record of actual recouped costs, do you maintain that, and can that be included in reports?
No, we do not, and again, some IGs do, many IGs don't. Yeah, that's a difficult thing to try to capture the recoup costs, because you put that back on the agencies for recoupment. So we have not captured all recoup costs, because many of the costs, again, some of those costs are recouped, and the definition of identified cost is monies that may be recouped. In a number of circumstances, the organization, for example, where I'm trying to think, I'll use Riviera Beach, where people who they have left and they continued paying their tuition assistance. They did some of these type of things. The city decided the person's gone, and even though there's money out there, or for people who've left employment from there, it's harder to recoup it, then we're just going to write it off. And we accept that, we understand that, but it's still under the definition of IG, it's money that could be recouped. Some of this money with the gas tax, there's multiple different cities attempting to get the gas tax from the individuals, which is very complex on how they're going to get that money back, from multiple agencies. But the short answer is no, we do not track recouped cost.
So may I follow up?
Please.
So I understand all that. I just do wonder if that wouldn't be something to attempt to track, particularly as we do look to our municipalities to help support the office. It seems to me that it would be helpful to have some, understanding it's not going to be complete, all of that, but just something that says these are the actual dollars we've recouped. I think it's also helpful for our citizenry to see that the office is really basically supporting itself with getting taxpayer dollars recouped. So understanding some of the limitations, I just wonder if there's not some process that could be set up for sort of tracking what dollars ultimately are recouped either by the municipality or the county or whatever.
Yeah, we'll look at that. Thank you for the recommendation. At the federal, when I was a federal IG, it's much easier to do that too, because you've got one organization that you're the IG for this organization, and you work with the director or the head of that agency who is very supportive of the IG, and who you report to Congress that if the director isn't supportive, Congress might take some action. So it's easier at a federal level than us, but we'll look into that. I can tell war stories on that where the agency head was not as cooperative, but Congress decided, they said, well, okay, you can do that, but we're going to cut $10 million from your budget next year. I mean, you're the director, but if you want to do that, you're going to be, and he all of a sudden decided to implement the recommendations.
Mr. State Attorney.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, General. Great presentation and great job as always. Just echo what my colleague Carrie Howard said. I do think it would be helpful for the public to know an overall savings to taxpayers from the IG's office, whether it's recoup costs or however you want to determine it, because I do believe that this office has been a net positive for taxpayers, also to increase trust in the community. It's hard to quantify how much increased trust out there in dollars, but you can quantify savings and recoupment and all those other things. Yes. I do want to compliment you also. You mentioned in your slides the outreach you've had in this past year has really been a step up, and that's kudos to you and Jeff and Stu and everyone who is part of your social media team, because I have seen a lot of presence on Twitter and Facebook that wasn't there before, and I think that really adds to the confidence that people are having in your office. So, well done.
Yes, and we just talked about communication yesterday, didn't we, at lunch? we did. Commissioner Romano.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I agree that it would be nice to know how much money the OIG's office has recovered. However, I would guess that it's probably less than what it costs to run the office. And that wouldn't bother me at all, because to me, especially with all of the assaults locally and nationwide on our American institutions, I think the great value of the COE and of the OIG is restoring public confidence in our government institutions. And as long as we're making progress in that way, as long as people think everybody is flying straight, then I was trying to think of an Air Force / Marine.
On the beam.
But I couldn't come up with one. But as long as they realize that we're doing the right thing, that's invaluable. Sorry.
And I think, and I agree with you that it may not come to a figure that's more than the office costs, but the savings that you've had by having municipalities change their practices, I think that should be added on to it.
Yeah.
That is a saved cost. As Benjamin Franklin said, a penny saved is a penny earned.
Thank you. Vice Chair Cradell.
Every time we do one of these, I try to figure out walking in what question I'll have. And this time I don't have that many questions. I think that some of your metrics reportings are a little bit difficult to follow as to where there might be some duplication, some multiple inclusions. But other than that, my concern is that you're not a treasury organization and you're not a collection agency. And I don't know how you could enforce on the various and sundry businesses, municipalities, organizations, their reporting to you of recovery, because they would be the agencies to collect, not you. So I'm just concerned that the cost of doing this, of chasing this, might outweigh the ultimate benefit. Beyond that, you guys do a phenomenal job. Take that from somebody who knows what you're doing.
Commissioner Kugler.
Thank you. Well, this is my first meeting here. I appreciate, and I told you before the meeting, that I think that it's important for not just those people that are involved in government or do business that has relationship to government, but for the general public to understand the importance of what it is that you all do. And that what it is you all do is not for the protection of the government, it's for the protection of the people who pay taxes that fund our government. And you all are trying to make sure that our government is working for us in the most efficient and effective manner, and you being good stewards of our money as taxpayers that we are giving to the government. I really appreciate that. I did not have an appreciation of how significant it is that the work that you do really contributes to our community and our confidence. And so I appreciate that. I'm going to continue my efforts to try to put that information out into the community, because the more people that know about it, the more this office can function, the better the integrity of our government, and the more that our people can have confidence in what our government is doing for them. I want to jump off on top of that a little bit of what has been talked about the cost savings. To me, you can go through the numbers, and ultimately I think that there could be arguments one way or the other as to whether this office funds itself by just the work that the office does. But it seems to me like where the real value of the office is in the prevention of fraud, waste, and abuse. And so my question would be, it doesn't need to be specifically answered today, but are there studies out there that talk about the percentage cost savings by having an active, involved Office of Inspector General when it relates to either specific agencies or counties or municipalities. Obviously, we all know that that's going to be an estimated number, but I think including that number in your reports would, to me, astonish people about the amount of prevention in savings that the Office of the OIG brings to our community.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner Kugler. That is an excellent question. In fact, this is, I've been, again, a federal IG for years before I came here to Palm Beach County at a number of different organizations. At the federal level, the national level, this is a great topic of measures of effectiveness on inspector generals across the board. And there's been some studies done, inconclusive studies, frankly. It's very difficult to tell the preventative nature because, in fact, oftentimes when you create inspector general, now you have places to call when things are wrong. So in some ways it looks like on the surface, well, more bad things are happening. We didn't have all these problems before we had an inspector general. It's because they didn't have anybody to call. So sometimes, even though everybody knows, it's like that police present. It's just like I go back to that squad car driving down 95 where everybody, when they know people are there, how much, that's very difficult, and they've not had any studies to be able to show that we all know it. I mean, it's one of those intuitive things that we know when we're there. Often, I mean, it's not uncommon when Tony and the oversight crew, the monitoring crew, when they show up, that everybody says, oh, we got to do it right, the IG's here. They joke about it, but there's some truth to that.
Yes.
That everybody knows the IG is watching, that we look at every procurement activity, and people kind of make semi-jokes about it, but there's some truth in that. We help promote things going right. We help prevent things going wrong, and that, that's just one of those things that it's tough to get a handle on it at nationally, locally. Tough to get an idea. I wish if I'm the first person who could do that, I would probably get some type of IG prize.
Thank you. It's interesting, the progression of comments all the way down, and I'm going to try to see if I can top any of you guys. But everyone brought up how valuable the IG and the COE are to the quality of life and here in Palm Beach County. And I understand the cost-benefit discussion. I mean, do we spend more than we save? But I think when I tell my students at FAU and other people that ask me, when the public gives their money to government, it's a different thing than an exchange between a buyer and a seller. Tax dollars are special. We have the public's, we're supposed to hold the public trust in government. In fact, the Miami-Dade County ethics organization down there is called the Public Trust. And I think the quality of life, our respect for government institutions, this is, I think, a cost of doing business. Unfortunately, it is. We have law enforcement, we have education, we fund those with public dollars, and it's just, I hate to say it's a natural evolution that we need these specialty enforcement education organizations like ethics commissions and inspector generals, but I think the public's trust and faith in government at all levels isn't good. But I think you have done an outstanding job in bringing the office to where it is after 10 years. And we were very, very lucky to have you here. And I'm happy to know you and work with you. So
Thank you.
that's my comments.
Thank you so much.
And I'm still trying to read the last 6 emails I got from Barbara. There's always a lot to read there. Okay, is there any public comment. Yes, sir.
Yes, I guess I can take this down for a moment. My name is Richard Radcliffe. I'm the executive director of the Palm Beach County League of Cities. And I really wasn't expecting to say anything today, but when you talked about 10 years, it kind of brought me back. And I believe there's our public defender and our state attorney have been here the full 10 years, but not everybody else has. And I think some things need to be said. There was a very different ethos here 10 years ago. I used to have to get up at meetings and say, don't use the C word, and stop people because they used to call us C County. And I said, you know, as long as we keep saying it, we will be it. Well, you don't hear that anymore. And the ethos has changed, and things have evolved. And people don't understand. When we started, it was very different. There was a hunt going on. Now there's training, best practices. We couldn't ask for, and this is your day, but we couldn't ask for a better thing, a better inspector general than we have. But there has been an evolution, and people do not understand. We have a lobbyist registration that is unique. People pay once, they're here, make it very easy. Out of the United States, we have probably one of the most progressive ethics systems in this country. Our lobbyist registration is fantastic. What we're doing here is evolutionary. We are right now revising the code on ethics. So there's kudos to everybody that's here. And for the people that have been here for the amount of time, what a wonderful change. What a wonderful ethos. What a wonderful culture to be part of such. We've taken a system that was, when this started, it was like smoke and fire. And now there's a collaboration, and the cities, they look forward. They're asking you to come in. So things have changed a lot. And kudos to everybody that's been involved, because it's an evolutionary process, and you didn't have to be here for the 10 years the whole time. But somebody's got to realize, Palm Beach County, we're leaders in this. So once in a while, you might maybe want to take a victory lap or say, good job for us. I don't know if we've ever really stopped and said that, but at 10 years, I didn't want to jinx it, to tell you the truth. But for 10 years, it's been a long time. So anyway, that's my 2 cents, but thank you, congratulations, and congratulations to Palm Beach County for putting this together and having a decade and having such positive results. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Radcliffe, and thank you for the ongoing help of the Palm Beach County League of Cities. Anyone else? Okay, is there any new business to come in front of the commission? Okay. With that, I will see all of you in 6 months or before, and we are adjourned.